At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 300 programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like aloe or skins, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and brilliant marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and, for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. With Shop Pay, that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts are going abandoned and way more sales happening. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell whatever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Skins uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan, who will be here in a few minutes, and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode of Orioles on the Verge, we're going to welcome Steve Melewski to the show. And later on this week, we're going to get into the best of the rest from our top 50 countdown. That is all on tonight's episode of Orioles on the Verge, which is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with all the odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Tonight's guest has been covering the Orioles for the last few decades and is coming off a 17-year run as a reporter for MASN. He continues to cover the team on his own Substack, and we're very happy to have him on our show for the first time tonight. He is Steve Melewski. Steve, how are you?
I am doing great, guys. Appreciate you having me on and appreciate you promoting the Substack for me. Any word I can get out right now, as I'm doing this now for a whole 5 days, is a good thing. So happy to be with you tonight.
Absolutely. And I think I speak for many people in Birdland when I say that we're happy that you have a new platform there at Substack where you're continuing a lot of the great work that you did at MASN.
Well, thanks. I was just going to say it's been an interesting time. It's been a transition, obviously. And for a short time, I was writing for BaltimoreBaseball.com. So I think I did not intend to confuse the reader by jumping around a couple places here. But I think it was good for me to keep, active while I was sort of sorting out what might be long-term destinations. So Substack's where I'm at right now, steveonbaseball.substack.com. Certainly looking to build up my subscriber base. I know you guys have a following on there too and enjoy what you do and enjoy your, promoting of me. And again, happy to be with you tonight.
Absolutely, and we're glad to have you here. And I've got to jump in here with the big story of today, which is the return of Felix Bautista, who threw a scoreless inning in Monday's game between the Orioles and the Red Sox, and had the fastball going in the upper 90s. It seems like the velocity is going to increase a little bit more as spring goes on. Steve, what did you think of that performance? And as you start to look ahead to the regular season, what will Bautista's return mean to this team?
Well, I think this was the best day of spring training for the Orioles because the mountain was back on the mound. And, I mean, that was so exciting. There aren't many, as you guys know, spring training games that kind of separate themselves from just the drudgery of spring. But this one was not created equal with other days. This was a special day. The guy had not pitched in a game since August of 2023. And he looked good. I mean, he was touching 97. He got 3 quick outs, 13 pitches. The fastball was mostly back, more to come. And the smile was back, and the big guy was back. So, I mean, you know, being in that clubhouse the last few years, his teammates love this guy. The coaching staff loves him. He lights up the room. And so his presence, I think, is meaningful to the Orioles as much as the obvious talents he brings to the ninth inning.
Yeah, that was definitely a different vibe today, watching that game when he got out there. And then afterwards, seeing the smile, it just looked like pure relief on his face when he finished that inning. Switching gears to the rotation and some of these starters, a lot of the starting pitching has been performing pretty well. And one of the younger guys fighting for a job right now is Cade Povich. He's put together 2 solid outings now this spring. I think he's maybe not considered a favorite to make the opening day roster, but does his performance this spring, do you think, gives him a better chance, especially considering that he had a really strong finish to last season in the big leagues?
I think he's certainly doing all he can do. But he probably realizes, and I think Brandon Hyde has pretty much acknowledged, they have their 5 if the Orioles say, knock on wood when we say this, you know, that group of 5 stays healthy throughout camp. As we know with pitching, man, things happen, and, you know, from day to day, it can look very different. But Povich is certainly great depth at the worst, and perhaps a key contributor at the best. I mean, this guy looked really good in September. The pitchability factor is strong for him right now. He's not throwing the ball by hitters, but he's still getting some whiffs, swings and misses. He got the other day, fan 6 and 3 innings. So love the pitch mix. He looks really sharp for that early in spring, and he needs that, right? I mean, Cade Povich needs pitchability. He needs his command. If he's leaving balls in the middle, they're going to get hit. So really great start to spring for him.
On the flip side of that, we've seen Albert Suarez come out of the gate struggling, and it has sort of been seen that Suarez has perhaps an inside track to a bullpen role and could be a fallback option if the Orioles can't keep their 5-man rotation intact throughout the spring. Now, we do know that Suarez is working on a different pitch mix, but has anything you've seen in his first couple outings given you any concern and raised any doubts in your mind that maybe he won't go north with the team after camp?
Not yet. I think it's too soon to get to that level with him. He proved it. He proved it last year what he can do at the major league level. One thing I have noticed, and I observed under the Mike Elias front office, and maybe it's different for certain individuals, I don't know, but I think they really don't put much stock in spring training. And that's for the guy who hits 380, just for the pitcher whose ERA is 680. I think they realize guys are working on things. They're, as they say, getting their work in. And I've always looked at spring training stats as they're not created equal. I don't worry about Cedric Mullins' stats or Mountcastle or Gunnar or Westberg, the established guys. Who cares what they hit? It's the guys who are on the fringe or competing for a job, you know, especially young guys you want to see do well. Kobe Mayo had that early 2-run single, and he really hasn't got – I don't know if he's got a hit since then, so you really want to see him get going. Guys like that. But to answer your question, I do not have a concern about Suarez after 2 outings. 2 weeks from now, maybe it'll be different if it's still like this.
And the guy behind the plate catching some of these pitchers, Sammy Basayo, I know you've written about him recently. He's really turning heads this spring, earning a lot of positive feedback from veterans, showing his power at the plate. I think it was the Charlie Morton quote, asking who Sammy Basayo was. I felt like that was a pretty instrumental in Basayo getting noticed there for a veteran like Morton to be like, hey, who's the 20-year-old kid over there catching? But do you think there is a chance that he debuts this season before the season ends?
Yeah, I think there's a strong chance of that. Probably later than sooner, rather than sooner than later. But the guy is obviously making a name for himself at camp. His defense has come along. The interesting thing is for years since they signed this kid, people have been talking about his deficiencies on defense at catcher. And for years, since they signed this kid, Oriole people have been telling me, we kind of like this guy as a catcher. We know he's not Johnny Bench back there, or maybe even Adley defensively with his blocking and receiving. But the arm is obviously big. It's legit 70. I have scouts tell me in the last year that he throws with more velocity and both more accuracy than Adley right now. They feel that's true. And he's so agile that as he continues to grow, as comical they list him at 180 when the guy's like 220 or 240, and you still see some listings that say 180. That was when he was in 8th grade, maybe. But Basayo's really handling himself well for such a young guy at camp. He's showing the bat. The defense has improved. I did an interview with Keith Law recently, who ranked him 3rd in his top 100, and he really gave a pretty glowing report on his potential for defense. So all this is good. Another kid, for me, he's another kid like Felix, in that he lights up the room too. I've interviewed this kid a couple times now where he has gone back and forth between Spanish and English, and he'll throw some English in there and it sounds really good. And when he smiles again, it's very noticeable. And the great engaging personality. So I think when he finally arrives in Baltimore, Nick, and the fans start to see this kid play, they're going to fall in love with him, his personality. I see a little bit of, like a young Santander type, how he played so well for the fans and was such an engaging guy. I mean, he's not that right now at such a young age, but you could see him becoming that kind of personality in that Baltimore clubhouse.
I love that. I remember when he was, I think, like in the Florida Complex League, and you're seeing a video, he got hit by a pitch, a slower, curveball maybe. It clearly didn't hurt, but, he's falling off to the side and, being really dramatic about it. And I've always felt like, I've had the chance to meet him or talk with him yet, but I'm glad you brought that up, that it really does feel like you got guys like Colton Cowser on this major league roster, Mountcastle, Adley. You've got guys who it's very easy to fall in love with as a fan. And it does seem like Basayo, once he gets up and hopefully establishes himself, he's just going to be next in line. That's someone that a lot of Orioles fans they're going to be buying that jersey. They're going to be rocking Basayo jerseys at Camden Yards. Be pretty excited to see him in that lineup every single day.
He's mature beyond his years. He's one of many success stories in the Orioles Latin American educational program. He's a high school graduate now. He graduated through the Oriole program, as some of these other kids have done. And when I interviewed him, I guess in Bowie Media Day last year, or maybe it was another interview, they all run together. At some point, I've asked him about being the role model for the national program. You're the shining star, Samuel. Do you like that? Do you like that other kids will want to do what you're doing? You're the leader. They follow you. And he does like that. He likes being that role model. He's got a strong family unit. The people in Bowie last year really got close with his family. They told me about his parents, and his family is really supportive of this kid. He's just got a great support system, if you will. And so I think that's one of many reasons we're seeing this kid shine right now. He's well-liked throughout the Oriole organization. His family gives him great support. And he's going to play in the big leagues this year. It'll be a surprise if he doesn't, to me.
One more follow-up to Basayo. I feel like everybody's going to be talking about a lot about Samuel Basayo this year, but an idea that everybody's throwing around, like, when are they going to extend Gunnar? When are they going to extend Adley Rutschman? When are the extensions coming? But an idea that we've kind of discussed is, could Samuel Basayo be one of the first bigger extension candidates we see from this organization, as someone who we locked down this guy for the long term because we love him so much, but also because, with the growing international pipeline in this organization, that's a real, kind of like you mentioned there, someone that a lot of other kids in the Dominican can look up to and the Orioles are able to lock that down, and he become a mainstay here in Baltimore for a long time.
Very interesting thought, because I would think most Oriole fans would think, well, he's maybe a candidate for that, but you got Gunnar and Adley and Westberg and Grayson, all these guys are ahead of them in the pecking order, but it could be that they're already starting to realize their future earning potential. And there are teams that have signed players and you guys tell me because I'm blanking on who it is, but I know it happened in the last year or two. Even before they got to the big leagues, they kind of locked up one or two of these guys who are these top prospects. And it would be an interesting thing to pursue to see, is this the kid who to do it with, that you get that 6 or 7 year deal for an amount that seems ridiculous now. And then after he plays a year or two, if he tears it up, you go, holy heck, they got him for the next 8 years at X price. So interesting thought you have there.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like aloe or skins, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and brilliant marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and, for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. With Shop Pay, that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts are going abandoned and way more sales happening. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell whatever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Skins uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
Hey guys, I'm late to the game here. Thanks for coming on, Steve. Let me pull up this question we have.
Bob, we're expecting you to pass the late note to all of us so we can
yes
on it.
Sorry, from Seth in our Discord. What's the read on Kobe Mayo this spring? Too early to make declarative statements, but it seems like he's missing a decent opportunity to force his way onto the roster. I know he's been hitting the ball hard, but hasn't really had the luck. What do you think his spring has said about his season?
We were talking a little bit before you got here that he had that 2-run single early on. It was like 113 off the bat, and he had some really nice swings in the first few games, and now it's been kind of quiet for him. And so that's mildly concerning. I'm not going to get too worried. We're 8 or 9 spring games in. So give him more time. It's very likely he doesn't make the opening day roster. He's going to have to go to AAA and reestablish. But right now, I think as the fan in me says, I really want that kid to have a couple of really good swings in Florida. So when he begins his year, likely at AAA, the confidence is there, and he kind of gets last year's major league stats out of his system and feels like he's reestablished himself. So I don't think he's done that yet in Florida, but there's plenty of time for him to do it.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping he had that Colton Cowser type of season where Cowser obviously struggled mightily in his limited time in 2023. He was, worked his tail off and then came into spring, had a nice spring, and then could have been Rookie of the Year. We thought maybe he should have been, but still time for Mayo to do that, I think. But yeah, it's early. Spring training numbers don't mean too much. Jake Fox.
Yeah, I know we do have a couple of questions about. Sorry, Zach. I think Zach's delayed a little bit. We got a couple prospect related questions, obviously, but I want to talk about one more question about the big league squad and the coaching on the big league side. You've covered Robinson Chirinos when he was a player in Baltimore. You saw Buck Britton rise through the system as a player and then a successful manager at each stop he'd made in the minor leagues. But both of them now being on the major league coaching staff, knowing them and this roster as well as you do, what strengths do you think they're going to bring to this clubhouse and in that Orioles dugout this season?
I'll tell you, both those guys are great additions. I am so happy to see them both there, and particularly Buck Britton, who I've known longer than Robinson. And I was interviewing Buck Britton when he was not even a regular at Bowie way back in the day. Buck Britton was Colton Cowser before Colton. You know how Colton's, Mr. Loose, cuts up with everybody, never met a guy he couldn't have fun with. That was Buck back in Bowie when Caleb Joseph and those guys were playing there. He was just a funny guy, fun to be around, and I gravitated to his personality. And then over time, I learned that this guy's a little bit of a jokester, but man, he sure knows the game, and he maximized his playing career. Buck got every ounce out of what talents God gave him to never make the big leagues, and he didn't make the name like his brother did, but he went as far as he could go. And when he got into coaching, I was like, wow, never has there been a player who is more suited for this. He's going to embrace it. And then when he became a manager and players start telling me how much they love playing for him, didn't surprise me in the least. So he has paid some dues here. And I think what the Orioles have in Chirinos and Buck, and both maybe in different ways and maybe for different reasons, but they have players those young Orioles love and trust in. And I've heard guys come to AAA have told me, from Connor Norby to Kyle Stowers to Gunnar, that Buck has your back in every case, but he's not going to just tell you what you want to hear or need to hear. He's going to tell you what you want to hear, what you need to hear. That's what I'm trying to say. And Buck will give it to you straight. If something's coming up short, Buck would call a player in Norfolk and tell him, here's what's going on right now, and you need to get this ish together on this. So I think he has their respect. I know Chirinos does. He was a breath of fresh air in that clubhouse, and he and Rougned Odor helped teach those guys how to win. They both had terrible stats, and I've heard fans always say to me, well, this guy's not a leader. His OPS is 560. I'm like, yeah, I get that, but the players respect him and his career. They know he's been places they want to go. And so Robinson Chirinos, he helped teach those guys how to win in 2022, and a lot of them are still around. And so these are great additions. I mean, tells you what they think of Chirinos. They made him the bench coach for a guy who's never coached in the major leagues. And, Buck is like, do what we need, which Buck can do. Work with the infielders today. You're the hitters tomorrow. Tell Grayson Rodriguez what you think about his slider today. The next day, he'll be a great addition. So really happy for both those guys that they got gigs with the O's.
Yeah, and we've talked about in the past how those soft factors that you can't, pin down to a number, the analytics, you can't put a number on it, but it's refreshing to see that Mike Elias, even though he came from Houston where they're, all numbers all the time, he's able to kind of turn a human element into it as well, trying to keep the clubhouse upbeat, fresh, whatever the vibes, keep them strong, so maybe that's why they overachieved in 2022 and 2023. So I agree. It's nice to have these guys in the clubhouse. I'm sure the players are going to be really comfortable.
For sure. And Elias has done a good job of, and you're not going to bet 1,000 in this, because sometimes you're going to overlook something about maybe a player's makeup or personality because his talent's just so good. You got to have the guy. But even with some of the top Oriole players, I mean, look at Kerstad. Jackson was the number 1-1. Adley was 1-1. Kerstad was 1-2. Cowser's 1-5. Those are 4 high character, no ego guys. How do you take 4 kids in the top 5 in the draft that have been told nothing but how great they are for years and years and are about to get millions of dollars when they sign, and they're good teammates? They have no ego. They just want the Orioles to do well. So I give credit to Elias and his staff for finding good people and good players. When you get that 1-2 punch, you really have something. And sometimes when I run into Oriole fans around town, I tell them, I said, let me tell you something I know about the team that you don't, because I'm lucky enough to go in the clubhouse. It's a great group of guys. When you really get to know these personalities, you're going to, if it's possible to root harder for them, you might, because it's just a great group. So I've covered some Oriole teams, and I have to go back probably 15 years for this to be true now, where there were some guys in there, okay, I could take it or leave it. And I'm not looking forward to this interview today because I know so-and-so is going to be challenging. But that's not true anymore. And the Orioles have a really good team chemistry. They clearly do like each other. It sounds Pollyannish, I know, but it's the truth. And so when you experience it, as I have, you're not telling a story here. You're telling what is really going on.
We definitely love hearing that. And we're going to go to a prospect focus here from one of our listeners, Vivek. He wants to know, is there a prospect in the system that you are personally higher on than maybe the national consensus or maybe some fans are?
I'll tell you, I wrote about a guy today on my Substack, Levi Wells, and I know you guys have ranked him in your top 50. I saw that. And here's why I'm high on him. Not for anything personal with me, but I talked to a scout recently who rolled out some really good opinions for me on a bunch of Oriole young talent, and he really likes this kid. And he was 4th-round draft pick who has, as I wrote today, better stuff than his stats. If you're scouting him off the box score, the stat sheet right now, no one's going to know the name Levi Wells. But when I talk to this scout who knows much more about it than me, I hear his enthusiasm for this kid, and I go, wow, what's going on with him? Well, what's going on, as you guys know, he gained velocity on the Orioles watch. He's touching 97 or more. His changeup, this scout told me the data on that his organization compiled was really impressive. And the scout also said to me, hey, Steve, he started at Aberdeen. He didn't start in the Florida Complex League. He didn't start at Delmarva. He started in Aberdeen. Now, he didn't pitch his draft year, 2023, but the next year, still some pitchers might have gone to Delmarva. This kid goes right to Aberdeen, pitched there all year, and so probably a good chance he gets to Double-A Chesapeake this year, maybe at the outset or maybe early. So he's one. I just love stories like that. Kids who, I like to write about them and learn about them before they make a name for themselves. It's harder to do that now because there's so much great coverage of young talent that who flies under the radar anymore? Almost no one. So you find a kid who's not yet in a top 30 that a scout's kind of raving about a little bit, gets my attention. So I wish I'd talked to more scouts. I don't have the relationship with some of the scouts as I do with this specific individual I talked to recently. If I did, I'd love that. I could just have a steady stream of scouts roll out info to me, because some scouts are protective. They're not going to just tell you their real feelings to any media guy. It's got to be someone they've got somewhat of a relationship with. And I was lucky that this gentleman, very good scout, gave some nice opinions, and one was on Levi Wells.
Yeah, we like him. It's Nick especially.
Yeah, I went to JMU, and so your JMU moved to the Sun Belt. I love the Sun Belt prospects, and didn't get to see Levi Wells when he was in college, but yeah, I am super glad to hear that about Wells, that confirmation there. But I mean, just zooming out and looking at the pitching development as a whole in this organization, and from the major leagues down to the minor leagues, I think something that's been a real pillar of our coverage, despite the constant, negativity surrounding this from a lot of fans and the people not wanting to believe. But it really does seem like the pitching development in this organization does not get the credit it deserves. But it feels like as last season went along, and especially this offseason, you're seeing more and more of those, quote unquote, under the radar arms like Wells, like Nestor Herman, Trey Gibson, Michael Ferret, etc. They're fully on the radar now, or finding themselves more and more on their radar. As you've been in contact with, other scouts, coaches, evaluators over the last, year or two specifically, are you getting that same feedback that, some of these late round picks and small school arms the Orioles are grabbing late in the draft, these are guys that fans should really take note of, and they're not just, they had a good year in Delmarva, but are they really starting pitching caliber prospects at the major league level?
I'll bet this is true. If we could poll every organization and get their true feelings, I think the Orioles would grade pretty well for their pitch development, maybe better than they would grade in the general Oriole population of fans who don't see a top 100, don't see Grayson, DL Hall, some big, he's number 10. They don't have that. But I do remind these fans that Bradish never made the top 100. John Means barely made a top 30. He was totally disregarded. And so it's impressive when you can take Herman, round 11, Trey Gibson, not drafted. Yes, of course, was the 5-round year. And some of these guys who are not high picks and turn them into something. And so I do think a day is coming, and I'll bet it's this year, when Elias uses one of those first 3 picks on a pitcher, maybe 2 of them. I mean, I think he's just finally going to say, I got to take a pitcher, top 30, somewhere in here, and that might be the guy we hang our hat on. But seeing some of these international guys like Morphe come on and some others get noticed, I see quantity out of which some quality will emerge. You know, you're not going to produce 8 out of 10 really good pitching prospects, but you might get 2 that have a chance to be in the big leagues. And if you get 2, that might still put you ahead of a lot of the game. So I think the Orioles are doing a lot right with their pitching program. Some of the guys I've interviewed, like Forrest Herman, these are sharp guys who really know what's going on. A guy like Forrest Herman merges the data and the analytics with the old school coaching, which is hard to do because most of the younger coaches are really skewed towards the data and that stuff. But do they know how to fix my delivery when I get out of whack just watching from the side? Well, some of these guys do. They're really good. And so I think the Orioles have some sharp guys. If you look at things like, and I know you guys have read like Baseball America, when they produced some of this Stuff Plus and they graded some pitching organizations in the last couple of months, the Orioles scored really well. So what they don't have right now is a lot of highly ranked pitching prospects, but I see quantity, and some guys are going to emerge and make it out of this group. If we were really good, we could name them who they are, right? So we can all say Morphe might make it, and the Levi Wells might. We're just it's all guesswork. But you have a lot of them, and I think some will emerge.
Yeah, and I feel like even just in the past few years, pitching development has it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter like Albert Suarez. It doesn't matter, your ranking. You can learn a pitch. You can mess with your pitch mix, and people can come out of nowhere, especially I feel like now more than ever. But next question comes from The Bird is the Word, who says, who is the most intriguing pitching prospect in the system, in your opinion? Obviously, this is right on topic what we're talking about here. But if you just said we couldn't predict who it's going to be, but that's what we're asking you to do.
It might be Morphe, Keeler Morphe for me, because he throws 100. He's 5'8". Those two usually don't go together. And the odds are stacked against a 5'8" pitcher making it in the major leagues. And that same scout I talked to gave me the perfect example of Marcus Stroman, 5'7", who's made it and had a pretty good career, because a 5'8" major league pitcher, right-hander, left, it doesn't matter, left or right, the odds are against him. Now, some things happen now in the game. 5'8" means your release point is going to be lower than 6'2" guy, probably, unless you're really over the top. And sometimes that works for guys now. The sidewinder, the three-quarter, they get more cut, they get more movement. And so Morphe's getting a lot of movement, and he's got promising secondaries at 18. So, I mean, we're not talking, I mean, this guy's years away from when we can say he might pitch for the Orioles. And that's okay, because, I mean, at 18, you're just not, it's not his time yet. He's low minors. He's got to work his way. But, to me, when I see 100 and when I see secondaries that show good spin rate, promising change up, you go, wow, this kid's not just some wild child with a big arm. And man, if they could ever harness it one day, he's got some of that already. So you put the brilliant minds in the pitching development, as we talked about, with a kid who's driven. And that part I don't know about him. I've never met him. I don't know how the coaches would grade him in coachability. Is he driven? Is he intense? Is he going to put in the work to do it? Maybe all are true. And then maybe you have something, and maybe he's going to show all of us that he can overcome the limitation that he can't work on is being 5'8". I don't expect him. I mean, maybe at 18, maybe he'll still grow a couple inches. Maybe there's time for him there. But right now, he does not have the height of other guys.
As a fellow 5'8" person, he gives me hope or just makes me feel worse about myself. One or the other.
Yes.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I have to jump in and ask this because we've talked a lot about international prospects tonight. We were talking about Basayo earlier in the show. And we were talking about Morphe. You've had a chance to see this evolution of the Orioles being a non-factor in Latin America to now having a very aggressive scouting and player development under Kobe Perez and Mike Elias. How has it been to see that process evolved, and what sort of benefits do you think it's bringing the Orioles?
Immense. And we haven't even scratched the surface on that because none of these guys yet have made it. You know, Basayo looks like he's going to be the first, and we'll be able to say the Orioles, wow, they have an international major leaguer that started at the very ground level and made it all the way. That's hard to do. And so I think Kobe was one of Elias's first hires. Obviously, that was a great hire. Then he hired some people to be on his staff. And Kobe keeps getting promoted, deservedly so. And he and Elias are a great 1-2 punch because Mike still loves to scout. He goes to the Dominican and looks at these kids, and he has extensive contacts there like Kobe. He was Kobe for the Astros at one time. So, and then the Orioles have others in their organization high up who are really good on the international front. And so they're doing good work here. And they've spent a couple $1 million players, which wasn't happening previously. And it's just going to be so big because 30% of big league clubhouses are international. So if you don't want to play in that market, how are you going to beat the Yankees if you're letting them kick your butt internationally? And furthermore, what really helped teams like the Orioles is when they changed the rules, the Yankees could spend $80 million on international, and the Orioles might spend $2 million. But the Yankees can't have that advantage anymore because they all spend similar amounts internationally. So now it comes down to scouting, and I don't think we'll ever see. I'm not going to say we'll never see an international draft, but I don't see it imminent. I just don't. I think there's too many challenges. So the Orioles are in good shape with Kobe and Mike Elias and the staff they have on international, the new Dominican Academy. They're doing great things behind the scenes. I've interviewed several times now a woman named Anaima Garcia. She's their educational coordinator. The players love her. She's teaching these kids how to handle United States, whether they go to McDonald's, whatever it is. These kids, we're taking for granted. They're not from here. They have to learn how do you handle yourselves? What do you do in the grocery store? So the Orioles are helping these kids with all of this. And it's all going to serve them well over the next few years because as they've now fallen from number one, how do you stay in the top 6, 8, 10, 12? You better be good domestic and international. So I think that's going to help keep the Orioles as a pretty good ranked farm system.
Love it. I think just a couple weeks ago, they had another graduation, and you see the excitement on those kids' faces and the way they're posting on social media, how proud they are to get that diploma. And one of the squads, I know they have 2 DSL teams, one of them had clinched the playoffs last year, and the celebrations were just pure, genuine joy. And those are always a lot of fun to watch. I have one more prospect focused question. Switch gears on the opposite end of that and talk about a kid from Vanderbilt who the Orioles took recently, and Enrique Bradfield Jr. He's a really intriguing prospect in the system because that's when the Orioles were picking later in the first round. And he's not the prototypical, power hitting, middle of the order lineup guy that the Cowser and the Kerstads and others at the Vance Honeycutt that the Orioles have taken. What are you seeing in Enrique Bradfield? What are you hearing when it comes to Enrique Bradfield about his development and what his potential role in this organization could be?
I wonder long-term, will he hit enough to be a good everyday major leaguer? We know he's not going to hit for much power. Would he hit enough batting average wise and on base wise to complement that great speed and defense? Because very few guys, as you guys know, have 70 or 80 great tools. He's got a couple of them. They say 80, defense and speed. That's true. It's almost like if you could combine Bradfield and Honeycutt, you'd have an MVP, because one of them, Enrique, doesn't have the power but has the contact. The other guy has the power but has too much swing and miss. If you could somehow put these two together. And I wrote recently that I think that is going to happen more often to the Orioles as they draft with their top picks 16, 18, 20, 22. You're going to take flyers on guys who have a wart somewhere. And for Enrique, it's the power. For Honeycutt, it's the swing and miss. So the Orioles have to work on these things. But both are said to be, and I haven't seen it in person a lot yet, elite defenders, just elite, like 80 grade. I mean, Honeycutt, they rave about this kid as they do Bradfield. So really, it's exciting to have that defense because it's so big and it's so overlooked, I think, by some of us when we just focus on, the batting line. But I like Bradfield. I love his makeup. He's another great kid, high character kid. Big time program, Vandy. Boy, he loves Vandy. You ever get to talk to him, get him started talking about Vandy baseball, he'll go for 10 minutes. And so the pride he has in his college is impressive. I like the kid. I wonder if he only hits 210 as opposed to 260 or 80. That's a big difference. And so we're going to find out when the time comes where he lies there.
Hey, got a hold of one in a spring game a couple days ago. So
he did. How about that?
Do that a little more often.
Yes. Yeah. He's put on a little weight, but he's still slender.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near, Jackson Holiday. If collides with him, he's going to send Enrique 20 feet. But that's okay because it's not – Enrique's never going to be that big. He never should. He needs his speed and his flexibility. But somewhere in there, you need some bulk too. The Orioles, I think, hope to get him to where he can hit some doubles, realizing, if he played every day in the major leagues, he might hit 5 home runs or something. And if he gets more out of him, good. But they got to get a few extra base hits out of the guy.
Love it. I don't know if Zach or Bob have any more questions. I do have one more I'd like to ask. I know we said 20, 30 minutes. We're almost at 40. Thank you again for your time. But
wordy.
This has been great. But to bring it back to the Major League side of things, to close up on my end, and I think it was your last post over at BaltimoreBaseball.com, you put up some predictions about the upcoming season, including that the Orioles will win the AL East. But I really liked the note you included in there about, there's so much time and space dedicated to discussing what's missing from this roster. But as you said, there's a lot to like. And I greatly enjoyed that optimistic piece because instead of the usual, why didn't the Orioles trade for an ace? Is the offseason grade a D or an F or a C minus, whatever? What is it about this group that stands out to you that gives you confidence that we're going to hopefully have a good year here in Birdland?
Well, and I skew towards positive. I've always been that way. I mean, I grew up loving the Orioles, and it's hard for me to separate the love I had as an 8-year-old kid and the media guy. I've told Brandon Hyde, you guys are going to win the World Series, and I am going to be in your office bawling my eyes out. Just know when the time comes, don't be surprised about that. Because I love the Orioles. So maybe I do see it sometimes with orange-colored glasses because I can't just put that aside and all of a sudden see it, think with no, without my heart in there somewhere. I mean, this is my team. But I think you guys could see how much I like this group and the chemistry and thing. In a sport where we can stat everything, we still can't stat that. There's no data, there's no analytics, there's no video, there's no data point that tells us how this together group, and they are that, what that means to them. So I do think that means a lot to this team. I think Tyler O'Neill was citing that today on the Masson telecast. He's seen it already. They embraced him with open arms. He's already feels like he's been there 5 years. He's been there 5 weeks. So it's that stuff means something. And I just see too much young talent. Jackson Holiday is going to be okay. Kobe Mayo is going to be okay. Grayson may be becoming an ace in front of our eyes. Again, I'm very optimistic, probably more so than a lot of people out there. But that's okay, because if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But yeah, man, I love this group. And I listen to sports talk sometimes, and I think, gosh, sometimes we miss the fact there are some good things here, you know. And I look at the fact that they won 101 games without an ace pitcher. Corbin Burns showed up. They won 10 fewer because they had injuries and other things went wrong. It wasn't his fault, but it can happen. The 2014 Orioles, Chris Tillman was the ace. He was never considered really a true number one. He was always a pretty good pitcher. So it can happen. And I just think this is the group. I think they're going to do it. And I think they can beat the Yankees. They beat the Yankees last year. They just fell apart for a couple weeks in September, and that gave the Yankees the division. Other than that, the Orioles were the Yankees equal, and head-to-head, they won more games than the Yankees did against the Orioles.
Well, we appreciate your positivity because we're kind of the same way, especially because we got started. You know, we're not going to talk about the bad prospects or the ones that don't work out. You know, we want to put a light on these guys, so we kind of skew positive too. And yeah, me personally, I've been a fan since I was a young kid, so it's definitely hard to separate. And I agree, there's so much to like. You think Gunnar Henderson MVP candidate, Adley Rutschman MVP candidate, Grayson I think could be an ace. Bradish, if he comes back late in the second half, he's ace quality pitcher as well. So yeah, I like this team a lot, and I feel like it's almost a matter of time before they get there. Just this young group of talent with this system they have in place now, I don't see them being bad again anytime soon. Knock on wood.
No, the window's open. It's a long window to win. It's not going to be open for just another season or two. The international is humming. They do have prospects coming we haven't even much talked about yet, and you guys have written about them. So it's positive, and that we have a great fan base. It's passionate about the team that allows us to look at all the quote mainstream media that report so well on the Orioles, and then we have other outlets that are not like on the level of the Sun or the Banner or Masson or something like you guys. And you have a following, and there you have a passionate fan base, and Camden Chad has a passionate fan base. I look around all this and I say, how do all these fans consume all of our product? But they do, because they love this team, and there's history here in Baltimore. We got a beautiful park. So, I mean, it's easy to sit there and look at what might be wrong or where they may come up short, and they might. But sometimes you miss a lot. In 2012, I did a radio show on 105.7 The Fan when the Orioles returned to winning. And I would get calls every night, "Oh, Steve, they'll be in fourth place in a week." And I said, why don't you guys just enjoy the ride and let's see where it takes them? And it took them to the playoffs, and some of the fans missed it because they were so worried about the other shoe falling, and they just kept winning, and they made the playoffs. So, you know, baseball's great, man. We love it, and you guys have the passion for it, and I think you can tell that I sure do. A couple of weeks from opening day.
Yeah, I mean, there's more to being happy in baseball to win a World Series. I just enjoyed the fact that we've had winning baseball consistently for the past few years, and it doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon.
Agreed.
Well, Steve, thank you again so much for joining us tonight. And before you go, let our listeners know where they can find your Substack, because if they haven't subscribed yet, they really should.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks. I hope they do. And you guys have supported that, and thanks for that. So Substack is like a website unto itself, which I've come to learn has 20 million or more people who go on each day and consume the articles, the videos, the audios. There's some really big name people on there. There are people with lesser names like me trying to make my way. So I'm new at it. As you guys have mentioned, steveonbaseball.substack.com will take you to, I guess you'd call it my homepage. And there is a free element and a paid element. Obviously, I wouldn't turn my back on someone wanting to put a few dollars in there. But if you just subscribe for the free part, there will always be free content at my site, my outlet, and I will always keep it fun. And once the games start, and we can get to ballparks like Baltimore and Bowie and Aberdeen, that's when I'm really going to dive into some stories. And I got some stuff coming, guys. I'm planning to do stories on the Oriole minor league broadcasters over the next few weeks. I've got a big interview with Kobe Perez not too long from now, where we're going to talk about international, and I'm going to take some of Kobe's insights and put together my rankings that I've done in the past. So got a lot of good stuff coming there. steveonbaseball.substack.com. Thanks
Excited
for the plug.
that. Yeah, looking forward to that for sure.
Thank you so much, Steve, for joining us tonight.
All right, guys, I will exit stage right and let you guys continue. But thanks for inviting me, and thanks for the support. And call on me anytime. We'll talk down the road some.
Sounds good. Thanks, Steve.
All right, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
That does it for this episode of Orioles on the Verge. Thank you to Steve Melewski for joining us. We will be back later this week with the best of the rest from our top 50 prospects countdown. In the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Twitch. We're also at Substack, oriolesontheverge.substack.com. And I should note, you can now find a link to our podcast merchandise store over at Substack, as well as links to all of those social media channels that I plug at the end of our shows every week. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, presented by BetOnline and part of the Believe Podcast Network.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.